Oh, what's this? Oh, I just turned on the camera. Because I'm back in nature. And for anybody who's been following my content, I'm gonna hold this thing in my left. Because it's important to alternate between left and right sometimes. Because if you only train your right arm, you know, like I've been told from a young age that, you know, I'm right-handed. And when I wanted to use my left hand as a child for writing, yeah, my parents, I mean, you know, you can't really blame them. But what they said to me was, you should use your right hand. Because that's what they believed is true. And I cannot really say anything. You know, for a while I thought, you know what? It's their fault that I cannot draw. Because, you know, I once heard that somebody's natural hand would be their left hand. And because they had been taught to use the right hand, they were basically deprived of their born right to become an artist. Well, that's just looking for excuses, yeah? You see, like today, I'm not really running that fast, I'm just like trotting, just so that I would get warmed up. Like, that dog is also not really full of energy, because maybe we overdid it yesterday a bit, I don't know. Maybe she hurt herself, maybe she feels rejected or neglected, because we don't always have all the time in the world to spend with her. And then she may feel like nobody loves me. Yeah, because dogs have the same. I mean, dogs are beings. I mean, there's a soul, right? Amy, you see? She likes this. I mean, she's not, in that sense, my dog. But I mean, I'm taking care of her. Yeah? Amy. How are you doing? You see? How are you doing? You know, sometimes she just needs a bit of getting into the mood, right? But I also cannot set everything aside for her. You know, that's basically how it is. So maybe she wants to be a bit slower today. You know, I can adjust to that to some degree, but I also have my own pace to keep warm, right? So in order to stay motivated, I somehow have to get going. So the problem I often had was that I stopped doing things because I didn't know if it was good to do it. So, I mean, it's hard to... Yeah, I'm switching to my right hand because my left hand is still cold. So, let's take today. And you may realize this is simply the way I am. Like, this is the way my mind works. You know, I'm just jumping from one stone to the next. And, you know, when I've said something or I'm attempting to say something, you know, I'm trying to make a point, my mind doesn't let me. Because there is no point. There is no fucking point. And I think, right, because I'm trying to understand, you know, what could I change so that people would like me more? Nothing. You cannot change anything for people to like you. Because people will never like you. Right? Because either, you know, they're going to love you because you represent everything, you know, that they think they could never be. And that's why they need you to love somebody, right? Or they're gonna hate you for that. So no matter what you do, there's always gonna be people that will feel good about it. And there's gonna be people that feel bad about it. Yeah, I have to warm up my left hand. A lieutenant. Yeah, you know, in the word lieutenant, maybe there's the word left hand in there, right? So I learned that I have to be my own left hand. I have to assist myself to do what I want to do, because until I'm doing it, all I'm doing is saying that I want to do something. So let's say you say, I want to get married someday. But all you do is fuck around, right? While what you want, you say, right? There's this goal in your mind or in your heart. I want to get married, or I want to be a mother. But instead of making that a reality, you sit around moping. I really like that word, right? Moping is such a great word. You're a fucking moper. And all I'm doing now is doing what I want to do anyway, which is sharing my scattered mind with the world. Because already at a young age I discovered that I think different than 99% of the entire human population. And the way it started, I mean, I've buried that somewhere in my content. So the reason I'm still recording myself is just to get more attention. Because people need to understand that they don't understand anything. But I do. Like, there's a lot that I understand just by looking at it. Because believe it or not, I have been granted with what you may call the sight, which is basically, you know, what Cassandra has. You know, you are presented with visions. You know, that's what shamans do. You have visions and you have to interpret them. Now, in this kind of fucked up society, if you walk around and you say you had a vision, let's say you had a dream that showed you a fragment of the future, people will laugh about you. They will say, oh yeah, really funny. Well, it's true to me. It's the truth. And now I have to run a bit because there's somebody behind me and I don't want them listening in on me. You see, so I have to adjust my speed to the circumstances. And right now I have to do a lot, and I have to do a lot, and I have to do a lot to be recognized by people by the sheer amount of work, you know, that I'm putting in to whatever it is that I'm doing. And by the time you figure that out, I may be already dead, right? Because at the pace that you people are going, I mean, this planet will be a complete desert. Because, right, everything everybody wants is to eat sugar, drink coffee, masturbate, watch movies, and drive around in cars. I mean, that's what people want. Which means they want to be lazy. And it's not just that they want to be lazy, they also are lazy. But then comes the general problem. They act like they don't want to be lazy. And when they see me being everything but lazy, they start getting jealous. And they start looking into the mirror and they think, well, I thought I was doing so great, but now I see that guy running around barefoot in the snow, right? Talking about things that I don't understand. And now suddenly I feel a bit shit. You see, there is no suddenly. You've been feeling like that all the time. I'm just showing you that you are wasting your potential. When I started to change my diet, stopped eating gluten, transitioned more to a ketogenic diet, which means, right, you exchange sugar for more like fat and protein. But, you know, I don't want to eat too much milk products. Recently I have started eating cheese again. Simply because, you know, I'm really fond of, like, I'm quite fond of pancakes, yeah? I'm quite fond of pancakes, you know? And to me it's a real stretch already to say, I will not eat pancakes with sugar anymore. You know, that's like, bam, it's like mind-blowing to me. Because I've been eating sugar, I mean, ridiculous amounts of sugar. And that's, you know, I know that when people say cannabis is the introduction drug, right? It's like the stairway to druganism, right? If you take cannabis today, you might shoot, you may shoot heroin tomorrow. That's a fucking lie. Because to me, the entry drug is absolutely and unquestionably sugar. Sugar. I mean, we've been raised like this. We've been raised into sugarism. I mean, this culture, I mean, Terence McKenna says this, right? I'm not the only person who's saying such things. Terence McKenna says, well, this is a sugar, coffee, alcohol culture. It's true. But what does that mean? Like, what is the mindset of a person that is addicted on drugs, like, right? You have to get that right. They're telling you drugs are all kinds of things, but never the ones that we consume all the time, right? I mean, to a starving person, water is a drug, right? To a starving person, you know, an apple is a drug. You know, it's basically anything that gives you a rush. Well, eating ratatouille can give me a rush. You know, if I've been waiting and desiring to eat it for months, and maybe I should make ratatouille, right? You know, I've had this in my mind already for quite a while. Maybe I should make it. It's fairly easy to make. I mean, it's just a vegetable stew. You can eat it with rice or without. But the point I'm trying to avoid is sugar creates in your mind a rush that is orgasmic. You see children eating sugar, it's like, you know, probably their pupils start to like get bigger. You know, it's like cocaine. You know, we're talking about dopamine addiction. You know, what we have when we use social media. When you get an email, it's like, whoa! Yeah? That's what sugar does. And before I knew anything about, you know, before my hands could even press buttons, right? I was already addicted to sugar. Because everybody is. Like, I haven't met a single person that's not addicted to sugar. And that's where I believe a lot of the depression starts. Because you use sugar, you eat it, right? You get into that delirious state. And then what happens? Well, you're gonna get down again. But now you want to get back there. Only now you're already hooked, right? So you start eating it again. There's this guy chasing me. It's like, why the fuck do you have to walk the same path as I? Maybe I'll just let him pass, right? It's like when you're somewhere, instead of chasing myself around, I'm just gonna sit here. Maybe not sit, but stand. And yeah, you see, the point is, you're probably addicted to sugar. And that's why, to me, you know, it's a habit. And I'm trying to make it a habit to do something else. Yeah? So I'm shifting my diet little by little because crashing it generally doesn't work. So instead of doing it, from one day to the next, I'm working with transitions. And that means I'm changing my diet little by little instead of changing it all at once. And that means maybe today you're still eating sugar. So what? Just eat something else tomorrow. Just try one day without sugar. I mean, really without sugar. And see how it makes you feel. And if you've done that, you can still decide if you like it or not. What I'm telling you, and I've tried this, as a full-on sugar addict. I mean, you're talking to a person that when he was 16, instead of cooking, I would just make, I calculated the amount of dough you would need to make 1 cup of dough. Yeah. So I calculated the ingredients I would need to make 1 cup of dough because I was fond of eating dough. So I calculated that and I just made 1 cup of dough, like for a cake, that kind of runny stuff. And I just ate that. And then I would go to work somewhere in, what kind of place was that again? Supermarket. And all I would eat was cookies. I would eat sugar, like really, lots of it. I don't know why not everybody has this. I cannot say why there are some people that like eating a lot of sugar, while there are other people who eat a bit less of it. To me it's difficult to answer. It's like, some people are really, really hooked by, sex, while other people aren't generally. In the end, it doesn't really matter, because whatever you are hooked on is basically your ticket out of here. Because if you're hooked on something, all you have to do is work with that. You use it until you realize, okay, now it's kind of getting shit, right? It's like, I had a lot of sex. I had a lot of sex. I had a lot of sex. Yeah, I did. Until it started to get really boring and more like self-destructive. And there was a point where I thought I had like a sexually transmitted disease. But, well, that was just something I had to work out of myself. Because I did have a lot of sex, and because most women take the anti-birth pill, which is madness in my eyes, because you have no idea what this does in your system. No idea whatsoever. Because the people that are selling it to you, including doctors, they won't tell you. So you have pimples and then they say, you should take the pill, right? Because that will take care of your hormones. The reason why a lot of people have pimples is probably diet. Well, they don't tell you that. No, they say, take this pill, it will solve all your problems. You have to change nothing. I mean, that's such bullshit. I mean, that was exactly the mentality when I went to doctors to help me figure out why I had severe heartburn for 4 years. For 4 years! And they stuck tubes into my entire body. Like, bleh, and up in the butt. Right, I was, unconscious. Yep. What's das? Oh, just a stick. I was unconscious and they stick tubes into me. And then they analyzed my feces and they took samples and all kinds of stuff. And you know what it turned out in the end? The last thing that the last doctor that I ever went to for this said to me, well, maybe I should eat less cake. And I thought about writing a book and name it like this. But I mean, can you imagine the frustration from somebody that is trying to work out adequately, that is trying to cook all the food that he eats by himself? I wasn't even eating that much cake. Okay, I was drinking coffee, but so what, you think? Everybody does. I was doing other kinds of things that everybody does, and sometimes I was trying to change things, but usually I tried to change everything at once. And then it all started to crumble in front of me, and I would be left, going back to my old methods. It's like masturbation. I've tried to stop masturbating and to stop watching porn for years. And when I've started at the age of 16, just listen to that. I'm 33 now, turning 34 in a couple of weeks. And I started watching porn, or it started with images, somewhere at the age of 16. That's when I started. And I've been masturbating ever since. When I was writing my final thesis, I would masturbate sometimes 10 times a day. Every time I hit a low point, I would masturbate to get out of this. And now the question arises, why? I mean, I can tell you why I'm masturbating. Because yeah, you should call it probably frasturbating, because I'm frustrated. Why am I frustrated? Well, there's all kinds of things. Because I wish, that's what I say, right? I wish there was a woman in my life, right? That's what I say. But the thing is, whenever there was a woman, I wished she would be gone. Because what I really want at the moment is to be alone and to figure out what makes me roll, right? Like, I want to figure out what works for me before I go into another relationship. And by now I have figured it out. But that also means I need quite a bit of space for myself. And so, I'm gonna make sure that whoever wants to be with me will respect that. And if they don't, well, they're not gonna make it very far. Because I'm not that desperate. I'm fine with watching porn. I don't really like it. But I know also, I still, I want sex, right? That's something I'm trying to work towards. But when I sit at home and, I don't masturbate, I get so agitated. Like, there's so much energy. If you don't masturbate, you're full with energy. What do you do? And I'm not even ejaculating when I masturbate. Because if you ejaculate when you masturbate, that's just a sign of weakness. Anyway, I've said that already 1,000,000 times, right? So, what do I do instead, right? I mean, you have to fill your day with other things. And so I started to look at my life, and I realized, okay, one of the things that seems to be the root, or very close to the root, of my weird habits, this kind of always wanting to go for the kick, the rush, seems to be sugar. Because my mind has been trained to have this kind of kick, and I have been maintaining this for most of my life. Even if it was unconscious, well, now it isn't anymore. That means I have to take responsibility for this. And that's why when you hear this, you can never forget that you heard it. Because you actually knew it all along, you just weren't aware of it. Because that's how it is. I mean, all truth is always available. You just didn't spend enough time looking for it. And I've done nothing else for the past 3 to 4 years. I mean, I've been looking all my life already. You know, I came here to look for things, for clues, how to lead a happy life. You know, when people were like depressed or I felt shit, I always said, without really knowing it, that cannot be what life is. Like, that's not, you know, that can't be all. I also always said, you know, it can't be that it's normal to live in this constant like up and down, you know, depression, and then I would have 5 minutes of glory. We're like, oh, I feel good, and suddenly, boom, back into depression. And I was depressed already as a teenager. And I think the main reason was sugar and gluten and all that yeast. Because now we're coming into a very complicated assortment of factors that contribute to things like depression. Yeah? It's a very, very complex network that keeps you depressed. You know, you can start by labeling these things. You know, it starts with your mindset. What is the mind doing inside a body that is being fed with sugar all the time? Because the mind feels all of this. You eat sugar, the mind starts rushing in all kinds of direction. You drink coffee, the mind is like, you know, it's focus. The mind is what helps a being to focus an intention. Now, if you're living your life and you're trying to be busy, I don't know, being a human or something, right? Managing somehow, and you drink coffee all the time, then your mindset is going to change into, right? Because that's what coffee does. You know, coffee is like anger. It's acidic, people. I mean, it's so obvious. It's, you know, it's burnt stuff. And everybody's drinking it like it's the best thing in the world. Oh, there's a note of flowers in there. Yeah. So is probably in, I don't know, mice shit. We don't eat that. Well, there's people that do. I mean, people are idiots. Don't you get that? I mean, there's people that discovered, oh, there's some kind of cat that eats coffee beans and that enriches the flavor. What kind of shit is this? You know, and then they discovered, oh, well, but these cats, they don't eat so much coffee. So let's feed it to elephants because, you know, they have a larger output. Yeah, great. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Nobody makes sense around here. Everybody's kind of mad. I mean, you might be Alice living in Wonderland, and everybody around you is pretending to be sane while they're all mad as fuck. Only they don't want to admit it because they're pretending. And it's like science. It's like, oh, I know what's going on. You know, I'm science now. You know, like all of it. It's like the scientific mindset. Oh, I figured it out. Oh, the world is round. And no, they figured out nothing. I mean, it's science that claims, I mean, I'm just repeating myself, right? I've said all these things already. Like, I mean, there's like 150 episodes on my podcast. I mean, it's like 30 books out there. I mean, I've said all these things already. Like, I'm just continuing to say it until people will start to acknowledge that I've got something to say here. Because I've been shouting my lungs out, holy fuck. Like, I've been literally ripping both my arms out and my legs to get recognized by this weird kind of system to be a person that has a message and that wants to say that to the people. You know, I'm here to answer questions, goddammit. But nobody's asking anything. And why is that? And that's when we get to the point of lies and pretentiousness. You know, I'm just smashing you with information. I'm just hammering this in there. You know, if I would get the chance to stand on the stage, you know, I would know how to do this. You know, I could take a problem that you think you have and I could dissolve it in front of your eyes, because that's what I've trained to do. That's how I have trained my mind to be. My mind is the fucking galactic Rubik's Cube. I get a problem and then I work on it. And my mind does that automatically. And I believe everybody could do this. Of course, at the moment, it's a lot of fun because I don't really know anybody who does it the way I do it. You know, because you have to be a bit mad. And you have to admit it. But when you admit that you're mad, suddenly you start making sense. And that's the thing, you know. I mean, I see people that walk around, you know, with their fingers in the air, like, you know, dancing, like they have something to say. And when you get down to what they're actually saying, you realize, why is that guy even talking? You know, it's like watching politicians. You know, the fattest guy in the room is standing on a podium and tries to tell me how to live. You know, yo, no, this is the new health regulations. Oh yeah, is it? But who's saying that? And there's people coming, so I'm, you know, I want to stop talking. I don't like it if people hear what I say, unless I want to say it to them. Anyway, I don't really like it, right? It's like people asking you, what kind of dog is this? It's a dog. You know, what kind of human is this? You know, why do we always have to label everything? Well, at least when you do label things, you know, label things that are worth labeling. It's like, put a label on your depression. You know, why am I depressed? What is causing my depression? Fucking figure it out. I mean, that's raw potential there. Your depression is the vehicle out of your depression, right? But you're pretending it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Well then, you know, on the other side of I feel so miserable, you know, do you know what's on the other side? It's like, fucking hell, I'm gonna go out there and show it to them, you know? You know, that's like when you start in the beginning, it's like, there's gonna be a lot of anger. Because you're basically gonna hate yourself for being so shit all the time. Right, and so, what else are you going to do? Well, you know, you're going to use the energy you used to mope into saying, I'm gonna be the best version of myself that I can be. I mean, of course, you know, and that's the other point. You know, I'm really complaining here, right? I'm really complaining that people haven't discovered me yet, all that kind of stuff. Well, the truth is, I'm just starting to discover myself. You know, I'm just starting to enjoy going out by myself, you know. I'm not even doing that. She does have pain in her right foot. I was told that she has something there. Well, what can I do about it? Can't really do anything. Well, comes. Now she walks away. Well, if she can walk, it's probably not that bad. Yeah, so, well, that's also the thing. I mean, she may have pain, but she's probably just going to ignore it until it's really bad. And that's how it is, you know. Generally, with most people, you know, they just pretend they're fine until they have cancer. And then it's like, You know, but they've been like this all their lives. You know, there are people that have cancer and they don't mope about it. I mean, what do they do instead? Well, they just push through like they've done all their life. I mean, it's a mindset. And I've seen people that drink coffee all day, that eat sugar, do nothing else, that basically leave it up to all kinds of things to get to a place where they feel good. And it's a dead end. Because in the end, you're going to sit around, you're going to feel like crap. Until you drink that other, the next coffee. But on the inside, you're going to get emptier and emptier and emptier. Why is that? Well, while I am outside, enjoying myself, talking about all the things that I've discovered that I am conscious of, and I'm walking around barefoot in the snow, like this, like frozen stuff, man. If you haven't noticed, it's like frozen. You know, I'm doing this. Yeah, okay, I have to push myself, but I know how. I know by now how to motivate myself. You know, if I have no motivation to go outside, I think about what do I need? What do I need right now to feel motivated to go outside? And then quite often it's like, okay, eat something, drink some tea. Okay, then I do that. So, you know, my goal is to be motivated. But what's your motive? I mean, it's already in there. You know, I explain the world to myself by thinking about things, by having conversations with myself. You know, you're not even here. But I'm still understanding something new every time I record myself. I understand something else. So I don't really need to stand in front of an audience. I just think it would be more fun. Because then I could engage with people directly. I could really make them shit their pants, right? Because that's what people really need. Because everybody's so afraid of being afraid that the only thing that helps at this point is by making them really shit their pants. You know, you have to confront your fears, not run away from them. So anyway, I'm walking around here, while last year I had frostbite. Like, I was quite afraid of being barefoot ever again. But I worked myself through it. And why? Because of my motivation. I realized wearing shoes all the time makes me weak. And it made my back ache much more again. So what needed to happen? You know, I realized, okay, I have to walk barefoot again. It's cold now. Well, that's actually, you know, it's not really an obstacle, only if you think it is. You know, read about that stuff. Information can be the key, but it can also stop you, right? Information can be the key to unlock your mind into trying new things, but only if you try them. You know, to just read books about going ice bathing isn't gonna do it. You can read a book to get you going, but then you have to do it, right? If you read about meditation, but you don't meditate, what's the point? I mean, to meditate is effort until it becomes easy. Slacklining is effort until it becomes easy. Living is effort until it becomes easy. And here I am surrounded by people that do nothing but complain about life, which means they're not living. They're resisting it because they feel rejected and neglected and all kinds of things. So instead, you could just say, you know, fuck it. I will stop complaining, because that's also one thing. For a large portion of my life, I was surrounded by people that did nothing but complain. Nothing else but complain. They always said, you know, this guy is an asshole, he's at fault, you know, look at them, they're fat, look at them, they have weird legs, look at them, they look like this, they do this, they say this, while they were all doing the same. And they were doing it to each other and to everybody else. And I said at one point, what the fuck? Because you get drawn into it. Maybe you started to be a bit different, but because everybody was doing it, you started joining in. Because it's not just in class, it's everybody. My whole life was like this. You know, I'm like quite a positive thinker. You know, I think in terms of solutions. I see problems, but I look for solutions. Some people, you know, the only thing they do is look for problems. They don't care about the solution. Why? Because the problem allows them to have an excuse to do nothing. Oh, well, the climate is changing anyway, can't do anything about that. That's the problem. The solution would be difficult. Because what is the solution to climate change? Well, driving less cars, having less streets, planting more trees, generally being less lazy, planting your own crops, going back to farming. Like, not like large corporations that use machines, but put in the work. Put in the work. But, you know, that's like for later. Maybe you're like me. You're somewhat alone with your ideas, right? So what can you do? Well, you start doing what you want to do. And when you've done that adequately, you know, you push through all the effort and all the, oh God, it feels so hard, you know, and you stop moping and you stop talking to people about your problems, but you deal with them on your own. You have a problem, you find a solution. Bam, bam. Right? It's like chuck, 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 puzzling in your mind. Sometimes I'm doing nothing else. I mean, I love this. I love sitting around figuring out my problems. Sometimes it's really hard, but I always find a solution. I mean, that video, Turd Philosophy. You know, I was trying all kinds of things because I work with Linux. Because Windows is absolute shit. I was actually quite fond of Windows. Until Windows 10 came. And the moment that came out, and they forced me into all these traps where they could steal my data, I immediately switched to Linux Mint. And I've been working with that ever since. The same thing, you know, I don't use Microsoft Office or something to write my books. I use LaTeX. I use Tech Studio to design my books. And every book is unique. In every book, I include different drawings. Every book is a different style. You know, I like to experiment with the way I engage with the world and myself. And so, you know, if you manage to get until here, I think you're really getting to know me. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Anyway, not really that dangerous. She wants to go up there. Phew. I don't really know what to do now. You see, sometimes you're somewhere at the crossroads, right? Ah, come on. Cannot always deny her what she wants. But I don't think she really cares. Anyway, I mean, I've been talking for quite a while now. The general story here is, what do you want to do with your life, right? I mean, in the end, it's your choice. You know, what I'm saying makes sense to me. I know why I'm saying things. But also, you know, I'm not really making an effort here to condense what I'm saying to you into something that's like short and concise, right? Because I just want to show you how I think, right? And the only way I can do that is by talking about the kind of things that I think about, right? And, you know, it's like, you know, I think about everything. You know, if I eat a lot of sugar, I think about why do I do that? If I smoke cannabis, I think about why do I smoke? Do I need to smoke that much? You know, that's the kind of problems I'm trying to solve. You know, why are there people that can sit on a glacier and meditate, which is a form of meditation called tumo, the inner fire, right? And they can sit there half naked while people are placing wet sheets on their body and they have to dry them in the cold just with their body heat, and they accomplish that through a breathing technique. It's like breath of fire, right? So how can it be that I used to go out and really freeze? I mean, I'm starting to get a bit cold now. It's also, you know, I'm not really breathing. So energy flow is restricted. You know, I should probably stop talking and start to breathe more. So I'm aware of this. But at the moment, there are certain things that I need to put aside in order to you know, find my audience, you know, to produce content that people can spend time with and learn something. And, you know, I was so often already at the point where I said it's enough now, I've produced enough content, but the truth is, I like doing this, so why should I stop? You know, it's like when you are in a relationship and maybe your partner doesn't have the, I don't know, the emotional capacity to love you a lot at the moment. You know, a lot of times, and that includes how it used to be with me, you know, if my partner wouldn't send me lots of love, I will stop loving her. You know, that's something I picked up from everybody around me, basically. Right? Somebody doesn't like you, so you don't like them as well. It's like, basically your emotional state is depending on the emotional state of other people. And so I even have that with her sometimes. If she pays more attention to another family member, I start to be a bit down. But I pay attention to these things and I speak it out, you know. I go to my other family members and I say, you know what's really crazy? When I see how she's waiting for somebody else, while I've been trying to make her feel comfortable all this time, and then, you know, she's just waiting for another person all the time, and when I leave it doesn't really matter, you know, that makes me feel jealous. You know, it's honesty. Honesty is what frees you from all those lies, all this bullshit. You know, instead of pretending like, you know, we're like the pinnacle of evolution, we have to admit to ourselves that we have no fucking clue what we're doing. I mean, a dog is a dog, and a dog does what a dog does. What confuses the dog into living in a handbag is a human, right? I mean, you can place a dog outside in nature, and the dog, you know, whether it's cold or hot, it will adapt. And then humans come and they take the dog, they put it inside, and then they wash it with soap, and suddenly the dog becomes a pussy. I mean, that should tell you something. You have an animal that can adapt to the environment, and then humans come and they think, oh, you know what? I'm gonna adapt the environment to me. And then I'm gonna complain about climate change, right? Yeah, all right. Maybe we shouldn't, have wanted, shouldn't have wanted, complicated. Well, maybe we've been heating a bit too much. I mean, everybody wants it hot. It's cold here in winter. Everybody's turning up their radiators. Instead of doing something, wearing a jacket inside. Nobody wants that because they want to be comfortable. They want to have summer and winter inside. Say, what? Look at the monks, how they're living in their monasteries. What are they doing to stay warm? Breath work. Getting used to it. Slowing down a little. Right? That's how it generally should be. Right? You don't have to live your life in winter like you would live it in summer. Because winter is a bit more slow-paced. Everything's a bit like, a bit like what? Well, a bit like that. Figure it out. What's the difference between winter and summer? So, things you can ask yourself. What effect does the moon have on me? I mean, that's a difficult one. It's like, okay, I'm tracking the moon phases with an app. And I'm trying to gather informations by paying attention to it. How do I feel during full moon? How do I feel during a new moon? How do I feel in between? So I'm paying attention to when do I have more motivation? When do I have more energy available? And how does the moon connect to that? Until now, it's very hard to say. It's very hard to say. But yeah, there's all things you can read about it. But to me, it always boils down to how do I feel about it? What does my feeling say? How do I feel on a new moon? But it's not just enough to look at that once. Because maybe there were other things that were having an impact on you, right? Because there's also star constellations and all kinds of stuff, right? And then of course, is it winter or summer? Or spring or autumn? It's okay, it's all different. So I have to keep observing myself. Okay, now is new moon, how do I feel? Sometimes I have the feeling, to me, when there's a new moon, because I've been, I live more according to my intuition than anybody I know. And I do so consciously. I make conscious decisions according to how I feel and not how I think it should be. So now I thought, I don't want to eat. I don't want to eat. What? Well, I thought I don't want to eat meat. Well, I really don't want to eat meat. But I also thought I don't want to eat cheese anymore because I thought, that's probably bad for me. Okay, but, something has to go on my pancakes because, I cannot really eat, I make my pancakes with oats, yeah, and eggs. That's okay, it's a trade-off. I don't use wheat flour. If I use flour, I use spelt once in a while just to give my pancakes another texture. Yeah, I'm really crazy about pancakes. And now I would take syrup and put like spoonfuls onto it, like the syrup was dripping everywhere. Well, now I'm transitioning to a more ketogenic diet, which means, okay, I'm exchanging sugar for, I just want to say meat all the time. I really want to eat meat, but I choose not to, I think. Yeah, I don't know, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna see. Meat isn't really worse than cheese. But, I like to have the feeling that at least, I'm staying true to that. Because, yeah, it's bullshit. But now, the last 2 days, I've been eating cheese on my pancakes. And that helps me to get through this phase of, not eating sugar. But my goal is to eat more ketogenic, and that means making lentils, chickpeas, that kind of stuff, right? But I have to get there somehow. So that's a problem. And what's the solution? Baby steps. Which means I'm not gonna stop eating sugar altogether. Once in a while, when I really feel like it, I will still eat it. But I'm drastically reducing it. And at the same time, I'm taking inorganic sulfur, which helps me to kill all the fungi and these yeast bacteria that are in my system and that basically send signals into my body that they want sugar. And this is where I draw the line towards what I've been trying to tell you. You are consciousness inside a body. And this body is hooked on eating sugar. This shapes your entire being. It shapes your entire being. It might be the cause of your depression, but connected to that is lots of things. So if you just think, oh, I'm just gonna stop eating sugar, well, maybe you can. There are people that can do this. To me, it was impossible. Because at a certain point, the longing for sugar got so strong that I couldn't do anything else but think about sugar anymore. But now, if you're trying to be self-employed, if you're trying to create content and to do all kinds of things, this sensation of the longing for sugar was so strong that it literally pushed me, boom, into the ground. The weight of this desire was like too much for me to handle. And so I gave in. I knew I was just biding my time. A part of me knew that. And that's why it was okay to me to keep eating it. Right? Because I knew I also have the methods to get rid of it. I also have the knowledge and the insight. So I kept working on it. I kept working on that. And you see, it's not just eating sugar. Because the reason you eat sugar may be that your body is full with fungi, with all kinds of yeast bacteria. I also stopped eating yeast. With all kinds of organisms. Your colon is your second brain. Your colon may be colonized with organisms that need sugar to survive. And they're going to send signals throughout your body that will get to your mind and tell you to eat sugar. That is one reason why you might be eating sugar. And to get rid of that, you might take something like inorganic sulfur, right? Black tea or green tea can help getting rid of these things. You know, I used to get stomach cramps when I drank green tea, and diarrhea. That's a symptom for fungal overgrowth. That's what I believe. And what else? Yeah. Whoa. Well, there's all kinds of things. Yeah. Emotions. You may connect sugar to certain emotions. Maybe your mother used to make you a cake, you know, and because you try to get to that place of love that you got from your mother, and so you eat sugar, you know. That's how the mind works. You're trying to get back to this place, and you know, that's just two things. And now it gets even more complicated because these things may be even interconnected. So it might be that in your colon there's also emotions and stuff, because in the end it all boils down to it all being energy, which means in your colon you're holding on to emotions, you know, that you've never let go of. So by doing a, for example, inorganic sulfur cleanse, right? That's just one way of dealing with it. You might not just let go of, you know, sugar-eating fungi, but also of emotions of when you were a child. You know, it's like a full-on cleanse. It's like a full-on cleanse. Like literally a full-on cleanse. So you see, it's all kind of interrelated. And it's up to you to figure it out. You know, that's the things that worked for me. So I've already done an inorganic sulfur cleanse. And I've also described how I did it in the Book of Fear. But it's fairly straightforward anyway. And I've also talked about this in my podcast. I think there's a show, an episode called Cleansing. Yeah. So, just a mild jog to warm up my feet. So I've already done that once for 7 weeks, right? An organic sulfur cleanse, ate no sugar for 7 weeks. So I knew it works. And the reason why I'm doing it now again is because I felt like it. Because I felt like I have worked out a lot of stuff that I was busy with, like emotional stuff, but I also got a lot of work done. And I realized I was getting to a point where I felt like I was stuck. So in order to introduce change, I said I'm going to change my diet. Because I don't want to do all these things anymore. You know, I don't want to overeat on sugar. I don't want to masturbate all the time. So I'm starting with my sugar addiction. Yeah? I know. Yeah, I know. Up. Yeah. So, you know, it's complicated. Life is complicated, but only until it's gotten easy. So, you know, I have figured out what works for me specifically. That doesn't mean that every day is like, oh, I feel so great. But it certainly got very easy. Like, compared to how I used to be, right? Things have started to change. Anyway, I don't really want to film here anymore. So, what can I do about that? Well, you know, there's a problem. You could say, I don't want to film here anymore. And what is the solution? I'm going to fucking turn off this thing. Because electronic devices do capture your consciousness and make you somewhat addicted. And that's why everybody's walking around with their phones. Right? It's like everybody on the streets walk around like a zombie. Oh, I've got my phone with me because I have to check my messages all the time. It's like, oh, is that right? You know, life throws you the best curveballs. You know, learn to catch them.